Alright, all you glorious gamers out there, welcome to the PlayersToo Podcast, the video game podcast for gamers like you, by gamers like you. You can find PlayersToo on all the social media, that is Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, the lot. You can also find our written content over at PlayersToo.com, that's PlayerSTOO.com. And if you could take 5 seconds to give us 5 stars over on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts, that really helps us out. It does a huge amount for the exposure of the show, and while you're over there, if you could leave us a little review as well, again, that just helps us out even more, and you would be an absolute legend to us. Alright, and on with the show. My name is Mark Henderson. With me, as always, Mr. Lewis Camley. Happy New Year, Lewis.
Happy New Year, Mark. Yeah, good to see you. How's things?
Not bad, not bad. Let's get to the chase here, Lewis. What have you been playing over the Christmas period?
Yeah, I've been playing 2 things over the Christmas period, and I don't think we've talked about either at all in that space, so you don't know what I've been playing, I don't think.
I have no clue what you've been playing.
Yeah, well, first of all, the second game is a lesser thing, so I'm going to spend most of my time on this first game, which is Final Fantasy VII Remake, Mark.
Oh, this is exciting. Oh, this is good, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very excited for this.
So yeah, I started...
Genuinely didn't know you were playing that. That's awesome.
Yeah, I've played about half of it, actually. I thought that it was a good chance I was going to finish it in time for this week's recording, but the weekend didn't go the way I planned, and I never quite had the time to put in it at that point. But yeah, I'm about halfway through. I've just got I've done all the Aerith's sort of hometown stuff, talked to her mum, blah, blah, blah. I think that was the last cutscene I had, actually. It was just right after
Such
that.
a big moment when you talk to her mum.
Yeah. It's been an odd experience for me because obviously I don't have the nostalgia that other people, particularly yourself, have for the original game. I have played all of this Midgar section from the original game, but only in the last couple of years, so I don't have that kind of childhood nostalgia for it. And I don't know, I'm quite mixed on it, to be honest, in a lot of ways. I've been enjoying it, but I've been enjoying it kind of, I guess, in a similar way to I was enjoying Nier, which is that it was sort of fairly brainless, but a good, interesting story and interesting, beautiful visuals in this case, a beautiful soundtrack. Those things really can't be overstated. Actually, I think I'm on the PS5 upgrade through the PS Plus subscription.
Sure.
And it just looks totally stunning. There's no getting away from that. Every cutscene, but even the in-game moments, even when there's a lot of stuff happening on screen, it kind of always runs really well, always looks gorgeous. Character designs are fantastic. I mean, at times it looks like you're playing a movie, like the Advent Children movie itself, Yeah,
definitely.
But in terms of my enjoyment of the actual game, it's been up and down. Like, I think that the story is brilliant. I like what they've revealed to me so far in terms of how it's different from the original. Like, quite early on, you're getting stuff that you definitely didn't get up to the point that I had played in the original, and also it seems like couldn't possibly have happened. I don't want to say too much to spoil it, because I guess some people are going to pick this up this year because we potentially getting the next part, which we'll come on to later. And I do like the moment to moment gameplay. I do like the combat is great fun. I don't think I love it as much as you did, because I guess for me, 2 things. I don't have the history with turn-based gameplay that you seem to enjoy moving away from in this case. So the element of stopping the game essentially to do the battle commands when you hit X and you can kind of issue commands to your party, I find that I don't often... I kind of only give Cloud a lot of instructions, and the other 2 characters that I've got.
So you're playing it a lot more like you were playing Nier, for example, or like a Platinum game or whatever, right? Okay, so much more arcade focused.
Yeah, I'm playing basically as Cloud, and occasionally like using Barret or Tifa or whatever. It feels almost just like a weapon swap. It's like I jump to them because I need range, or I just want to try something else out. And that's, don't get me wrong, there's been times definitely when I've kind of done it as a more tactical thing, but by and large I'm just running in with Cloud and smashing things. And I guess part of the reason that it sort of falls down, and this pulls through into other parts of the gameplay as well, is that I've just played God of War, which had the most sort of satisfying, smooth, flowing combat system.
Very different style of combat.
Yeah, totally different. And so when I say that bleeds into other elements of the gameplay, I'm even talking about things like the exploration. When you're opening crates and stuff like that, it's so much slower than a game like God of War is. Like, everything just kind of It's very stop-start. There's a lot of cutscenes where you talk to someone and then you walk to another space and then another cutscene begins. And I found some of the side quests really frustrating in that I was kind of like, talk to a shopkeeper, go over here and kill the rats, come back and tell the shopkeeper I killed the rats, go back to the same place and kill different rats. That sort of stuff.
I think that is a bit of a hangover from like the original game, or like that era of gaming. Yeah, I agree that the side quests are not where it's at its strongest. I will happily admit that, but like the mainline story, I think is very, very well done indeed.
I mean, there's no getting away from that. The main story is fantastic. Like, I do find Cloud and the gang a bit corny a lot of the time, and like the dialogue.
Yeah, but that's the whole vibe though. That's great. It's fucking great.
But then underpinned by this, really intelligent kind of eco-terrorist plot, you can see all, knowing some of the machinations that Shinra are pulling right from the start, you get sucked right in. So I've been enjoying it in that sense, but I've not been totally blown away by the gameplay. And I think that is just taste. That is just in my experience, and as I say, recently playing something like God of War, it puts it in kind of stark contrast. So as I say, I'm about halfway through. I've got about half to go, but enjoying it. We'll definitely see it through at the end. Might play the Yuffie level because you get that as well through PS Plus.
Oh yeah, the integrated DLC. Yeah, you should play that.
I feel like I might as well, because
really
if I don't do it now, I probably won't do it. If you know what I mean, like I'll just.
Well, exactly. Also, it's not. See, if you're just playing the Yuffie stuff, like you're just playing like the mainline story in it, which I guess you probably will. It's not that long.
Exactly.
It's really not that long. It's totally worth it. Yeah, it's really good, man. I'm very, very glad that you're playing it. Like, don't get me wrong. I know for a fact that Nier and Final Fantasy are like, you're never going to like them as much as I do, and I know that's just a difference in taste, but I am so fucking glad that you've actually played these games. It warms my heart. So what else have you been playing? What's this other game?
Just the other game, again, just a PS Plus little addition. I always sing the praises of these subscription platforms when they let you try games that you otherwise definitely wouldn't pay for. And what I've been playing to take the kind of edge off sessions of Final Fantasy, or just when I can't quite be bothered or put that much time in, is WWE 2K22. A guilty pleasure if ever there was one. As I say, I'm not gonna talk about it for any length of time. It is a bit messy still, even though it was well received. The gameplay is pretty tight and good fun, and like you'll enjoy that. But like the menus and how slow everything is in terms of loading and that kind of stuff, which I suspect it's the PS4 version, but yeah, it is not always comfortable to play, I would say, but it's good fun. And I'll probably keep dabbling with it.
Well, I've played both Madden and FIFA recently, and I know all about slow menus.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness gracious me.
What about you, Mark? What were you playing over the break?
Well, Lewis, I believe that I mentioned before we sort of finished up for Christmas that I'd started playing The Witcher 3, and if I hadn't mentioned that, then that's what I've been doing. And I've been playing it fairly relentlessly, I have to say. Now, everything I'm about to say has to be taken with the proviso that this game came out in 2015, so it's a very old game. I believe it came out in the PS3/360 generation. Is that right? It sort of must have been sort of towards the end of that
both,
generation.
I think, yeah.
Lewis, this game is absolutely fucking outstanding. Holy shit, I fucking love it. I cannot put it down. It is ridiculous, and I know, again, I feel like such a fool because everyone's been like, yeah, I've played it like 3 times, I know it's fucking good. I played it years ago, you moron, why are you just getting around to playing it now? I mean, yes, but man, it's good. It's like real good. It totally lived up to the hype in every possible way. It is so fucking incredible. I cannot believe you didn't finish it because I simply can't put it down.
Yeah. The reason I didn't was only the length. I just got to a point where I was like, I have to move on to something else. But I keep going because I totally thought you were going to be hate playing this and we were going to be having a totally different conversation. So I'm glad to hear how much you're loving it.
I am going to heap some praise on it. This is probably the best open world game I have ever played. This is probably my favourite open world game, which is a ridiculous statement for a game that I'm coming to so late on, because it's just so clear to me now. Like, it's like all the stars have suddenly aligned and I just see like, Horizon and Assassin's Creed and all these other things. It's just like, they're just trying to be this. They're all just trying to do this. And none of them have done it anywhere near as good as it. Like, it is so, like, as you said, and people go on about it as well, like the side quests and all that in this game, and how really, really good they are. They are so good. Yeah. Like, it is unbelievable how good. Like, I thought that there was almost no way that this was going to live up to the hype, and it was fucking completely blowing me away. It is so good. I am stunned at how much I like it. I have played it so much, Lewis, that I have got just the last run of levels to do. I'm like at the end and have now started playing the DLC. So I'm now going to play all the DLC and then finish the game. I honestly can't put it down. I have shocked myself by how much I like this.
Oh, fantastic. I'm really glad to hear that.
Also, by the way, I think that we also spoke like briefly about, I can't remember if this was on air or off air, about the fact that I wasn't really into Gwent. Mm-hmm. Can't fucking stop playing Gwent now. It's totally changed my tune and all of it. Like, I remember as well as a wee bit hum-ho in the combat, and like I sort of still am a little bit, and it sort of is a bit loose, and I think in modern gaming we're just so used to sort of that Soulsian style, like slow deliberate combat, whereas this is, you can't just sort of button bash your way through most battles, to be honest with you, particularly when you get to the higher levels. But like 90% of this game is just narrative. Like the vast majority of this game is literally just speaking to other characters. Do you know what I mean? Honestly, like I would say that at least 75% of it is just that, and 25% of it's like actual combat and actually being on missions, which sounds pretty insane as well, but man, it's good. It's really, really good. It's genuinely, like, if I had a list of my top 10 games, which I absolutely do, man, it has to be in there. It absolutely has to be. It is definitely my favourite open world game I've ever played. And again, it seems ridiculous that I've come to this so late and decided that, but it is fucking amazing, and I feel like a fool for not having played it before now, Liz.
Yeah, I mean, again, so glad to hear you say that. I always thought it lived up to that hype when I played it and just fell off, but I did really worry when we last spoke about it, which was basically just after your first few hours playing it. I think that
it was not that far at all.
You weren't enjoying the combat, and I guess the side missions hadn't quite kicked in yet or whatever. So to have pushed through it to the level you have, as I say, I kind of saw that you were constantly playing it over the break every time I went on my PlayStation, and I had just an expectation that this conversation was going to be you saying I've been pushing myself through it because of the concerns that you had right at the start. But two quick questions. First, how many hours have you put in? Do you know?
I don't know, and quite frankly, I'm afraid of looking. A lot. It will be, by the time I'm finished the DLC, it will be well over 100. Wow. I would say, probably relatively easily. So yeah, a lot. It's a long fucking game.
And secondly, when you say it's your favourite open world game, are you including Breath of the Wild in that?
No.
I got the sense you were talking more kind of open world RPGs, but I just wanted to clarify.
Yes, I do mean that. I'm talking in like the realm of like Horizon and things like that, which I also do really enjoy in terms of like open worlds. Like I'm talking about that. I'm not talking about Breath of the Wild. Breath of the Wild's like its own genre nearly to me. So yeah, not quite that, but it is exceptionally good. Genuinely can't put it down, man. Genuinely can't put it down. All right, and that's probably enough of me gushing over The Witcher 3, a game that is, I'm pretty confident, nearly 9 years old. I think it is time for our look forward to 2023 list. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Because it's been the Christmas break, not a lot happens in the news, so we think that this is a fantastic time to take a look forward to what is happening in video games in 2023, and we're just going to get straight stuck into it. Lewis, take us through all the big consoles.
Yeah, we're going to start this year with the three kind of major platforms, talk a wee bit about what each of them is going to offer us this year and kind of dive into some of the issues around that, and then move on to some other big games and other big stories. But starting, as we always do, with PlayStation.
We're PlayStation boys at heart, and we don't try and hide it.
I guess the kind of story for PlayStation in the year ahead is sort of that we're waiting for this next phase now. God of War Ragnarok sort of capped everything that we knew about at the launch of the PS5. Obviously, there's plenty of other games that we know about since then, but it has always felt like this was the kind of first chapter almost of the PS5 life, was kind of concluding with God of War Ragnarok. So here we are. What is going to be next? The first thing, I guess, that is actually next, Mark, because it's only a few weeks away, is PSVR 2.
Yes, that is true. That is very, very true. Coming out strategically just after Christmas.
Yeah, exactly. With a nice and reasonable, healthy £530 price tag.
Indeed.
What's your headline thoughts here? I don't want to spend a lot of time on PSVR because it's just not our thing necessarily, but this is a souped up version of what they've had before. It can go toe to toe with some of the other headsets around. It is a pretty chunky price tag. Is it going to make a splash? Is it going to bomb?
I think for the price tag, you're getting incredible headset with an incredible amount of technology in it. When you compare it to things like the Valve Index, the price point is actually extremely competitive. Having said that, it is still prohibitively expensive to the vast majority of people out there. Ultimately, I think this lands with VR enthusiasts. I don't think that many new people will come to VR because of this headset, which I think is a little bit disappointing, but I do still like that PlayStation are supporting this technology and the fact that it could lead to more games, which hopefully one could become a killer app and then really VR takes off, and that could be really cool. But ultimately my expectations are similarly to how the Index went. Like, it did make a bit of a splash when it first happened, when Half-Life Alyx came out. I don't really know if PlayStation have anything like that to bring initially at the start. I suppose it's the Horizon Call of the Mountains is really what they're banking on. But I mean, ultimately, I think that this will be for VR enthusiasts, and in reality, probably not much else.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with that, and I think it's a bit of a shame because it did feel like there was an opportunity here for PlayStation to really push this and kind of transform VR into the thing that it's kind of always been.
So can I just ask you, would you rather they toned down the technology that they were putting into it to lower the price point?
Personally, for me, yes, because the price point will always be the blockade here. I mean, that's not to say that a £300 model would have got me necessarily, but it would have got a lot more people in, I suspect, if you couple that with something like Horizon Call of the Mountain, which is that is the tentpole game that they are obviously hoping a lot of Horizon fans will make the jump across, because actually the rest of the slate that's been announced isn't massively exciting either. There's nothing that, you know, you're right, there isn't a Half-Life Alyx, you know, or anything. There's not a VR exclusive God of War experience or Last of Us experience or something like that might have really dragged people in. So it is Horizon, and I'm sure there will be, like, some of those games will have things down the line. They'll no doubt do a Ghost of Tsushima VR thing or whatever, because they're beautiful games that are, you know, would be fun to be in those worlds. But I mean, I think even PlayStation feels a bit quiet on it just now. This piece of hardware comes out in 6 weeks, less than that, and it doesn't feel like there's a huge push going on. And I'm not saying for a second that they're putting it out to die, but I just don't think that I think they've made strategic errors here, basically. I think it's a too high a price point, even if it is a good deal, at the wrong moment, essentially.
I don't think that the pandemic was very favourable to this, unfortunately, because this would have been long in development before the pandemic even hit. And with the cost of living crisis and all that, it's a hard sell.
Yeah, absolutely. But anyway, on to the games, the PS5 games in particular. And actually, we don't know a great deal about the year ahead for PlayStation, talking in terms of exclusives and first-party games. Very quick, I mean, I can list them really quickly because there's not so many. We've got Forspoken coming up in January. We've got Horizon Burning Shores, the DLC, coming in April. FF16 in June. The big one, really, of the year, the only huge game, I mean, you could make an argument for Final Fantasy 16, I suppose, that we know is definitely coming this year, or recently has been reconfirmed for that, is Spider-Man 2. Is that an exciting year for you, Mark?
I mean, to be honest with you, I have Final Fantasy 16 in my third-party list, coming up list, so I'm not considering that a first-party game. Even
it's not first-party, but it's exclusive, I guess, is why it's there.
Yeah, I mean, is that an exciting year? I mean, I don't hate it, to be honest. Like I'm pretty happy with Final Fantasy 16 and Spider-Man. I mean, I'm always happy for more Spider-Man. But yeah, is it a particularly stellar year for PlayStation, considering we're just off the back of having a year with Horizon and God of War come out in the same year? Like, no, it's not, to be honest. And I think that this probably will be a quote-unquote down year by PlayStation standards. It's just sort of the nature of the cycle a little bit. Do you know what I mean? You're not every year can be the best year ever in video games. No. You know what I mean? And fortunately this year, I think that the other two platform holders are really stepping up compared to last year.
Yeah, we'll definitely come on to them in a second. I guess the thing for PlayStation for me here, it does so far to me look quite a lot like, was it 2 years ago when they had like Miles Morales, then Returnal, and like Deathloop was the big fall exclusive.
Indeed, yeah.
It's looking like a year like that. And I mean, don't get me wrong. I
agree, yeah.
I'm excited for Spider-Man 2, absolutely. And there are a few other potentials. We don't know, for example, if this Last of Us multiplayer game is going to come out this year.
Yep.
Naughty Dog have just been saying things about not wanting to announce game release dates too early anymore because it has a negative impact on working conditions, essentially. So they might not talk about that a great deal until it's suddenly ready. So that might be closer than we think. We also know, obviously, about like the Wolverine game, but there's no suggestion that is coming this year. I would find it really surprising if it did. I almost feel like, we're going to get one of these slightly quieter years, but within which PlayStation set up that next slate for 24, 25, 26, essentially.
Indeed. I'm expecting a couple of showcases, basically. I don't know, PlayStation seem to be really toning down the amount of showcases that they're doing in a year, so there's been rumours forever and ever and ever that we're getting one at the start of the year, which I can sort of believe because they need to hype you up for the year ahead. So I wouldn't be totally shocked if we got a state of play relatively soon. Then we'll get one around the E3 time, Summer Games Fest time, I would imagine, as well, along with announcements potentially at Summer Games Fest like they've done in the past. And I would expect that to set up the next 2 or 3 years of releases, basically.
That's exactly what I think. I suspect we'll also start to get a look at what some of these other studios that they've been buying, and this sort of slight shift towards multiplayer games that Sony's been talking about for a wee while now.
Agreed. I would expect a lot of service games from Sony coming very shortly.
And to start, even if they don't come out in 2023, I think that the narrative of PlayStation in the year ahead might well be a bit of a shift towards something slightly new, maybe even further changes or upgrades to PS Plus and that kind of thing. But it does feel like this is probably a transition point into this next phase of what Sony are trying to do with the PS5. Finally, hardware is available on the shelf, so it's time for them to really give this console a boot up the arse and really make it be as exciting as it can be.
Yeah, and I think that this really is the end of us seeing like cross-generation titles.
Pretty
I think
much,
the vast majority of games now will be coming out exclusively for the current gen consoles.
Yeah. So, Mark, talking about games, is it finally the year that Xbox gives us some games?
Well, they couldn't give us any fewer than last year, to be fair, could they? But I mean, the big one, just immediately off the bat, it's Starfield, and I think a lot rides on that for them, to be completely honest. In terms of what the Bethesda deal was worth, and just in terms of the perception of Xbox titles right now, do you know what I mean? Which are certainly last year sadly lacking, I am interested to know what your opinions are on Starfield. I know that you're not really interested in it. Like, even if it was a good game, you probably wouldn't play it just because it's not your thing. But, like, what do you think about that game, and how do you think it's going to land?
I suspect that it will land well. I think people want it to be good, and so it'll get a bit of...
they definitely do.
Yeah, and so...
But as Cyberpunk has proven to us, that doesn't necessarily come true.
No, but I suspect, like other Bethesda games, even if it lands a bit rocky, it'll get a leniency because people want it to do well, and people are excited by the idea and all that. I'm not especially excited from what we've seen so far, but that, again, is totally about taste and interest, and I basically don't really love Bethesda's RPGs. Any wing of them I've not really loved. It's just not my type of game necessarily.
You did like the Elder Scrolls, but it wasn't so much for you Fallout and whatever, was it?
No, I enjoyed Skyrim more than any of the Fallout games, but I don't know. I just don't love their formula. But I think that it does need to land. Starfield needs to come out and do well and kind of set a bar for what the rest of the studios that the Xbox have been buying or are trying to buy need to kind of get to, because it's the only game really that looks like it's on par or could be on par with what PlayStation is doing in the first party space. I guess the other one, we are supposed to be expecting both Starfield and Redfall from Arcane in the first half of the year. I don't suspect Redfall would ever do as well as Starfield, and it won't be looked at in that way, but I think also it has to come out and do well. It has to put a marker down to say, this acquisition was worthwhile because here are finally some games coming from it, and they are good and interesting games. Because even when Deathloop eventually made the jump to Xbox, did anyone even notice? It was old news by then, and that game was even fairly mixed. So Bethesda needs some wins, and Xbox needs some games. So that has got to be it. And really, other than that, at the moment, the only other thing we know is coming is Forza Motorsport. So it's still a potentially light year for Xbox, but there is more, obviously.
I am also, similarly to what we were saying about PlayStation, I am expecting a Xbox showcase relatively soon, like in the first quarter.
They've just confirmed the showcase on January 25th today, I believe. They
Oh,
confirmed
there we go.
Yeah,
I missed that, Lewis, preparing for this podcast. Clearly.
They're calling it a developers showcase, and it's both Xbox and Bethesda. And I think they confirmed that Redfall at least will be in it.
Oh, nice. Okay, that's very cool. And I am sort of hoping that we get more solid dates in 2022. Sorry, in 2023. As we said, last year was very, very sparse. So I'm hoping that they announce something big here. And in terms of Redfall, just to hit on that very briefly, I think that is the sort of game that could be very successful on Game Pass. I think that could be great for them on there. Do you know what I mean? Is it going to be as big a splash as Starfield? No, of course it's not. But could it have a very long tail on Game Pass? Yes. And I think that they'll be pushing it hard there.
I totally agree with that. I mean, if you think about even there's the buzz that something like Back 4 Blood got, or Outriders, you know what I mean?
A great example.
But if you take those games, they had quite short tails. But if this is as good as Arcane can make it, and Xbox put their heft behind it, then you've got to think. And I really do hope. I hope that Starfield's good, even though I'm not interested in it. I really hope Redfall is good, because that's closer to the type of game that I would maybe pick up and try, and I think could again be quite an exciting statement for what's ahead.
I just like
Xbox.
Arcane as a studio as well. I just want them to be
inventive.
Successful.
I guess the other big question. Well, there's two big questions, essentially. Will we see anything from any of the games that have previously been announced but have all gone a bit quiet? Talking Hellblade, talking Fable, Avowed, Outer Worlds 2.
Surely Hellblade, Lewis. Surely Hellblade. Please Hellblade. In terms of the other things, as we spoke about, I think maybe last time we were talking about the podcast, looking back, no, I don't get the feeling that a lot of those games are particularly round the corner. No. Apart from Hellblade, which has just been in development for so long, I have to hope, Liz, at least, that it can come out this year. I would love in this showcase that they've got coming up, see if they just go Hellblade 2, that's our big December game this year. Look forward to that. I would be fucking delighted, frankly. That is all I need from that showcase, personally. And with what they've got going on in the beginning of the year, I mean, similarly to what we were talking about with PlayStation last year, Horizon and God of War coming out in the same year, that is a great year. And if Xbox can bring out Starfield and that lands, and Hellblade 2 and that lands in the same year, I think you've got to say that is a successful year for Xbox. And you've got things like Forza Horizon coming as well, which I know is a bit more niche, but has a strong fan base there as well. Then you've got Redfall on top of it. This could be a very, very good year for Xbox, but they need to put some dates on shit.
That's it. That's totally it. If the things that we know are coming land, and the things that might come arrive, it's a killer year for Xbox. At long last, it is the year that people have been waiting on. I mean, then that's not to mention even things like machine games is Indiana Jones that we heard about 4 years ago now almost, I think. And so,
I mean, this is the thing about announcing games too far in advance. I really just think they should have kept quiet on all of that.
Potentially,
I mean, allegedly we're getting a Wolfenstein 3 at some point from that studio as well, but God knows when that's coming.
Right, exactly, yeah. And so it'll be so interesting to see what they announce later this month and just generally throughout the year. And obviously the other thing about Xbox is that it's all of those first party releases, if they finally happen, are underpinned by a Game Pass day and date schedule. Absolutely. Which we know includes some incredible games, and we'll no doubt get more games that we don't know about yet. So all of that hangs together well for Xbox. The other big question mark: does the deal get over the line? Does Activision Blizzard become part of Xbox
I
Studios?
had a couple of questions I was going to maybe tack on at the end of this. That was one of those questions. Honestly, Lewis, see if you'd asked me this even maybe 2 or 3 months ago, see before the FTC got involved, I would have been like, it'll be done in 2023. Now I just don't know. I just don't know. I think it's gone in my head from being a dead cert, yes, it's going to happen. They'll have to humour the regulators, but it'll be fine, to thinking oh God, this has actually got some quite serious hurdles to clear before the deal goes through. And I think with the fact that the FTC suing them, that's just, the minute you get the courts involved, that's just kicking into the long grass as far as I'm concerned. I really have no idea whether it's going to get done this year. And I don't know, I'm leaning no basically now, which is crazy.
I basically am getting to that point as well. I think that, with all the regulators still to report, I think the British regulator said over the Christmas break that they have extended their time frame to now be into sort of April. And then this FTC thing, I mean, do companies ever get past the FTC? I mean, I have no sense of that, but it feels like a really significant blockade, and whether that will just change the deal or actually stop it remains to be seen. But there'll be a lot of effort going in behind the scenes at Xbox just now, possibly taking away from this kind of work that we would all like them to be doing, but yeah, I don't think that saga is anywhere close to being totally over, and I'm sure we'll be talking about it quite a lot over the next, certainly the next 6 months.
Another year of only talking about that deal every week, Liz.
Finally, for the platform holders, we've got Nintendo. 2022 was kind of strangely, quietly, quite a big year with quite a lot of quite major releases. But
I think that it was a big year for Nintendo. I don't think it was a big year for us playing Nintendo games because it just didn't speak to us. I think that's the main thing.
I would agree with that, but it just didn't feel like a lot of those games really got... There was no killer game, but there was like 10 brilliant games, and their core franchises by and large. 2023 is looking a lot quieter so far, except for the big one, which is The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, which is due in May. How confident are you that we are going to be playing that game in May, Mark?
Not enormously, but I think that we would get it in the first half of the year. Like, I don't think it's going to get delayed hugely. Like, I don't think it's going to get delayed to the end of the year. I don't think it's going to get delayed into next year. I think we will be playing that game in the first half of the year, but if it slips a little bit, wouldn't surprise me enormously. But yeah, I think that Nintendo are generally pretty... When they put like a hard date on it, they don't usually slip that much from it. Do you know what I mean? Like, I believe before this we only had release windows for Breath of the Wild 2 as it was then, and now we've got like a hard date, and they don't tend to slip enormously from hard dates. So are we going to get to play it in May? Maybe not. Are we going to get to play it in the first half of the year? Yes, I think so.
Yeah, well,
very excited about it as well, obviously.
Yeah, that's a reassuring confidence. I could definitely see it moving towards the end of the year. I don't see any need for it to go much beyond that, except for, and this is essentially my second big question on the Nintendo front, but the two are basically combined. The thing that I could see affecting when Tears of the Kingdom comes out, how often are we going to do that?
A lot.
is the question of the Switch itself. Is this hardware going to make it? And I don't think for a second now that we're getting any sort of Switch 2 or Super Switch, as people have been talking about. I think that Nintendo will be relying on the OLED model kind of looking a bit nicer for when Tears of the Kingdom comes out. But I'm concerned that if there are any technical hitches with that game right now, looking at the way particularly Pokemon just came out, which is different kettle of fish maybe, but still, in the back of my mind is quite a significant warning. If that game is not looking good and not running good, do they just push it and just wait until they are ready for it?
Well, again, talking about big questions that I had on my list was, do we see whatever the next Switch is, the Switch 2, this year? And one of my bold predictions for the year, and we're not really doing that, that's not really a thing, but if we were, one of mine would be that we do get to see that this year. There is an announcement made this year, and that it will be coming out like next year, like March next year, say. I don't think that Breath of the Wild 2 waits for that. I think that a new Mario game will be announced for that.
Wow,
launch it.
Like an Odyssey sequel.
That's basically what, like an Odyssey 2 exactly, or whatever they were doing with Bowser's Fury, like an open world
like
Mario
a 3D.
That is what I'm imagining will go there. Don't get me wrong. Obviously, Tears of the Kingdoms will definitely be on that console, but like I don't think it's waiting for that console.
Yeah,
and bold prediction, we do get to see the Switch 2 at some point this year, announced for next year.
I mean, that would be amazing, and I love that. Was one of my questions to you. Really, was going to be: do you think we'll see a Mario, an Odyssey sequel? Essentially,
there will be a Mario game this year. It will not be a mainline Mario game.
But yeah, I guess those are the fears for me. I think if there is going to be an announcement of a Switch 2 or whatever is coming next from Nintendo, it will be quite a bit after the release of Zelda, because they won't want to complicate that, and they won't want people saying, "Oh, I'll just wait a year then and I'll play it on the new system." I think we won't hear about anything until back half of the year, but that would be really exciting. I wasn't expecting it, but you've kind of given me a bit of hope there.
Yeah, I'm expecting a sort of September-y announcement, say, for a release in the summer next year. That's sort of the vibe that I'm getting, because in the end, despite what PlayStation and Xbox do when they always release their consoles just before the holiday window, Nintendo have no problem releasing in March, which they done with Switch, to enormous success. So... All right, Liz, should we touch on the third-party stuff very quickly? I've just sort of broken this down into tiers of games, basically. So in terms of AAA stuff that we're getting, kicking things off with a selection of what could be incredible remakes. We've got the Resident Evil 4 remake coming this year. We've got the Dead Space remake coming in just a couple of weeks. We've got Final Fantasy 7 remake coming this year as well. So some really stellar-looking remakes. That's part 2 of the Final Fantasy 7 remake trilogy.
Rebirth.
Rebirth, indeed. as well as Final Fantasy 16, which we already mentioned. So 2 major Final Fantasy games in the same year, which I don't think has ever happened before. Then we've got the recently announced Armour Core. Then we've got things like Hogwarts Legacy. We've got Suicide Squad coming. We've got Star Wars Jedi Survivor. We've got Skull and Bones, allegedly, although apparently that could have been delayed again.
It has indeed,
in very recent times. Oh, dearie me. Forsaken, which is also coming in just a few weeks. Avatar, Stellar Blade as well, which is another PlayStation exclusive game. Actually, I believe published by PlayStation, but is not technically first party. And Diablo 4, I'm sure I'm missing loads of stuff there. And I think quite a wide range of games. Like, a lot of that doesn't appeal to me, and there'll be certain parts of it that don't appeal to you, there'll be certain parts that don't appeal to everybody, but I feel as though there's a lot coming from the third parties here as well that gives something to everyone, you know?
Yeah, I'd totally agree with that. I'm thinking that this is, on the face of it, a really incredible slate of games at that level. And like you say, like, for everyone, there's something there for every type of player. Things like, well, we'll maybe set the Hogwarts game to one side, but Jedi Survivor, I'm really excited about. That's probably the first big game of the year that I'm really excited about. Less excited about something like Suicide Squad, but definitely want to see a bit more of that and find out what the fuck they're actually doing over there at Rocksteady. What have they been working on so long? There's even, there's been chat that we would see Assassin's Creed Mirage later in the year, although it does seem like Ubisoft is in a bit of trouble at the moment, and so who knows what's going on there. I think they cancelled 3 unannounced games today as well. So, yeah, trouble at mill at old Ubisoft, so this list might be changing quite a bit.
Indeed.
But yeah, I think that there's some great stuff, and I just hope that some of the things that have been long rumoured may well happen, but maybe we'll come on to that.
We can come on to that in a minute, Lewis, but I do want to move on to... So something you mentioned there, Assassin's Creed Mirage. Now, that is actually a much smaller title than we are used to seeing from the Assassin's Creed franchise, which is why I have actually put that under my double A heading here, along with things like Atomic Heart, which I'm particularly excited about, along with Life of P, which is an incredible concept for a game, I think. But even things like... And again, you can argue about what double A actually means, right? But what I'm really saying is things that definitely aren't indie but aren't like enormous AAA games, you know what I mean? You've got things like Octopath Traveler 2, you've got Wulong Fallen Dynasty, you've got Layers of Fears coming, you've got Remnant 2, Dead Island 2, Alan Wake 2, Lords of the Fallen. Do you know what I mean? There's a lot happening in that sort of AA level right now, and I really think that size of game is really seeing a revival like over the last few years, like thinking about things like Control and A Plague's Tale, and even like PlayStation, as we mentioned earlier on, Miles Morales, things like that, doing smaller titles that don't require such an intensive development period, but still are worthwhile experience, you know what I mean, that can come in at a lower price point. And I think that there's such a exciting set of games coming there, do you know what I mean? And I'm really interested to see how that tier of games is received next year.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or this year even, sorry. I'm still talking as if it's 2022.
There's tons there, and I think actually the scale and the quality of a lot of those games makes that boundary between the previous category and this category really porous in a lot of places. I mean, there's games there that look every bit the AAA quality, and potentially the length and the sort of interesting level of some of the big AAA games that we were talking about before. So yeah, Lies of P is looking really, really interesting for Bloodborne fans like us. Alan Wake 2, I'm really excited to... I still need to play the first one, but I've been looking forward to playing those games at some point. Yeah, there is tons coming out. Atomic Heart is not far away at all. Hopefully that lands the way we've been expecting it to for quite a while now. But, there's essays to be written about why this is happening, and it's because of how risky it is to make AAA games, I think, and how expensive it is.
Sure.
But that's great for us, and particularly when you throw in that a lot of these games will appear in subscription models, it's a great time to be a player in a lot of ways,
Absolutely, and as I said, I think it's just exciting that there's a lot there in the AA space now that's really, really exciting. For a long time, to me anyway, it just felt like they were just a step down from AAA. They were just trying to emulate AAA, whereas now they just seem to be finding its feet, do you know what I mean, as something that people want as a shorter experience at a lower price point. I think is important to a lot of people as well, do you know what I mean? But nonetheless of incredibly high quality, do you know what I mean? And I think that we'll see more and more big publishers enter that space. Like talking about Miles Morales and things like that. Do you know what I mean? And Assassin's Creed Mirage. So we know that that's happening.
Exactly. Yeah.
And finally, just to touch on the indies as well, we love an indie game here, ladies and gentlemen. And Hollow Knight Silksong It says it's coming out next year, Lewis. I almost refuse to believe it.
Yeah.
But they do say that it's coming out next year. And that is headlining the indie category by an enormous margin for me personally. And quite frankly, could be headlining the year for me if it's anywhere half as good as the first game was. But we also do have Blasphemous 2, Oxenfree 2, Goodbye Volcano High, Hyperlight Breaker, Planet of Lana, Replaced, all coming this year. And that is to name a mere handful of the indie games that we've seen in showcases and things like that recently. Again, it's just so alive, the indie scene. I love it. Do you know what I mean? I hope that a couple get really big this year. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm almost removing Hollow Knight from that because it's already
exactly
achieved
it's
that
a different
big success.
thing,
Do you know what I mean? But I would like to see like the next Celeste or something like that. Do you know what I mean? The next thing that absolutely smashed it from the indie scene. Do you know what I mean? Because it has been a little bit quiet over the last few years. Not that the indie scene's been quiet, but just in terms of like it really breaking through that ceiling, you know. I would love to see that from any of these games, frankly, and I think that a lot of those ones that I can mention, and probably many others, could easily do that. Do you know what I mean? And there'll be indie games released next year that will be incredible, that we'll love, that we'll want to play, that we've not even heard of yet.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah, that was what I was going to start with there. I mean, there's obviously a list, and some of these games, like, you know, Hollow Knight in particular, does stand apart as almost a separate category and onto itself. But there's tons of games. I mean, you think about Oxenfree 2, that's going to be really exciting. Blasphemous 2, I cannot wait for that. I love the first game. Season, which was a big part of this, PS5 launch stuff, that's coming out again right at the end of January. There is a demo out for that just now as well. Really looking forward to that kind of stuff. Replaced, as you mentioned, looks absolutely fantastic. But, you know, Tunic and Death's Door are games that really stick out to me in the last couple of years as things that seem to come suddenly from nowhere and became really kind of exciting. Even, you know, they might not have landed for everyone, whatever, but suddenly you were seeing these games and going, oh, this is it. Like, this is going to be the one. And so, yeah, I totally agree with you. I hope we get 10 announcements of indie games this year that you're like, I'm desperate to play that. And last year even was fantastic for that, even though it didn't always feel like it. But I've been thinking a lot about my back catalogue this month just because there's a bit less to play. And my God, there's tons from last year. So we've still got all that stuff to enjoy too.
Exactly, man. Exactly. Right. I just want to finish on a couple of like quick lightning questions here, Lewis. My first one is the big one that I think everyone's probably thinking about. Grand Theft Auto 6. It has been 10 years since Grand Theft Auto 5 came out. It has been on 3 consoles, that game. It has been 5 years since Red Dead Redemption 2 came out. We're kind of due a Rockstar game. Do you think we see it in 2023? Not is it going to be released in 2023, although that could be another question, but do you think we get an announcement of whatever Rockstar are working on with GTA 6?
I think that it is probably more likely than not now because of the leak, apart from anything. So they've kind of got nothing to lose by just even saying, "Yep, it's here and it's happening, and here's where it's set," and you know there'll be more to come. They could easily placate people that way. I think the 10-year thing is interesting. Hadn't thought about that, and not that Rockstar will feel like they need to do it on an anniversary or whatever. But
it would be in September.
Yeah.
So if they announced something in September when it was the 10-year anniversary of GTA 5 for coming out in the summer or whatever next year, or even just putting a 2024 date on it or whatever, that wouldn't surprise me in the slightest.
No, exactly. And I feel like Rockstar doesn't tend to do really long promotional cycles. Like they tend to announce and it comes out within a few months. So I think we'll see it this year. I don't think that we'll get it this year, but that's exciting enough, isn't it? Yeah, very much so. I have to say my 2 bold predictions for this year are we get to see the Switch 2 and we get to see GTA 6. That is my bold predictions for this year if I had to pick any. But potentially another bold prediction, or well, I don't know how you feel about this. Like, there's been rumours for ages and ages and ages around Konami. Obviously, we got all the information about Silent Hill recently, which is really exciting with where they're taking that series and whatever. They're clearly trying to move back into games. The footsteps have been there for a long time, and the fact that they're looking to get back into like major game publishing. Metal Gear Solid, Lewis. Do we get to see anything? I dare not dream, basically. There are a lot of rumours, and you think that, you know, almost no smoke without fire, right? But I don't know, because a lot of the rumours are pointing towards it being a Metal Gear 3 remake, and that seems a little odd rather than doing the first game. There's been so much talk about Bluepoint, but they've told us that they're working on an original IP, so who knows on that.
No, Bluepoint are working on a remake and an original IP. I highly doubt it's Konami.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing, and just where would a Metal Gear remake land then if Konami aren't doing it themselves? Who knows? I would love to see it, but I don't really think so. I think this might just be something that we all cling to forever. There is also a movie in the works, and you could see them trying to line up, at least loosely, any kind of new game or remake of a game with that to a certain extent. But I don't know. Possibly. I don't even know if that's where that's. That's probably back in development hell.
Indeed. Now, very quickly, Lewis, do you think we get a major push into gaming, by which I mean on our TVs, from Netflix, who are probably best placed to do something like that, maybe apart from Xbox? We've seen Google try and fail. We've seen Amazon try and then forget, potentially, that they're involved in gaming. Netflix, do you think we see anything? Talking about Oxenfree 2, that's going to be published by Netflix. There's been a lot more movement from Netflix in the gaming sphere over the last year.
No, I don't think we'll see it in a big way. I think that they'll continue this kind of mobile push, essentially. I mean, I know you can play some stuff on TV, but I think again today they announced that they're releasing TMNT Shredder's Revenge on mobile through Netflix exclusively, and so I think that is the route that they're going down. And that's not to say that won't build up to something more. I could see something like Oxenfree being available to play on your Netflix TV app or whatever, but I don't think we'll get anything much more substantial than that, and I don't think it will even be every game that they sign or whatever, you know.
No, I certainly not everyone, but what I'm thinking of, like, is there a Stadia in there where they could be doing streaming things or something? Do you know what I mean? I basically agree with you, though. I don't think that there will be a huge push, but they are on the bubble, I will say. They are definitely the next, now that Stadia has fully failed and Luna's basically been forgot about, they're the only ones that I could really see making a push in that direction, you know. Do you think that we see any other major acquisitions? We already mentioned that Ubisoft are not in a financially brilliant situation right now, and we've seen them make some brutal decisions around cutting games and whatever recently, and we know that the quality's not been there a lot of the time, and we know that they've been missing more than they've been hitting for a while. And Square Enix has already sold off an enormous part of their business to Bracer Group in the past year. They seem like likely candidates to me, but do you think that we see another major merger on the scale of, like, well, maybe not Activision, because nothing will be on that scale ever again, I don't think, but like on the Bethesda scale?
Yeah, honestly, yeah. I think that might be the other dominant narrative of the next year, because economically things are precarious for everyone, and that, you know, if you go and look into the Ubisoft stories from today, it is basically a case of, like, they are not in great shakes. They recently said that a couple of their games haven't sold very well. Mario plus Rabbids was included in that. And so I think Ubisoft could be, I'm not saying that all of these would happen or will happen, but I think Ubisoft are there for the taking potentially. Square Enix, there's so many rumours around them after the sale. There was chat about EA not that long ago. I think, was that Amazon or Disney or something? It was some big American,
very possibly company. Yeah, I'm sort of remembering
there was something about that not too long ago. You know, they all feel potentially there for acquisitions, and these companies are going to want to just strengthen their hand or sell off and kind of cash in while they can. It's horrible, because I really don't want that stuff to happen, and I don't really want a lot of these big tech players to enter the gaming space in a big way, but it feels like it's coming, you know. The chat over the break really that Apple are about to bring out a VR headset as well, so you can see that their move might be starting to happen a bit, you know. I think Activision will not be the only thing happening next year.
Yeah, no, I can agree with that. I just wonder what PlayStation do. Like, do they continue down this route of buying, like, individual studios that they like, or do they swing for the fences like Xbox and buy a Ubisoft or a Square Enix? It'll be very, very interesting to see. Absolute final question, Lewis, before we can get on to our topic of the week. Do we see pro models this year for the Series X and the PS5?
No, I don't think we'll see anything on the Xbox side, to be honest. I could see Sony doing it. I hope that they don't, but I think now that
I mean, this will be 3 years in, do you know what I mean? And by the time that console actually comes out, it'll be 4 years in, which is right in the sweet spot for a pro model as far as I'm concerned.
I mean, it is, but these consoles have not been pushed at all yet, so the notion that they need a pro upgrade is not there, and people are only really getting their hands on them easily at this point, so to suddenly pull that out, you know, I don't see how you
very different console cycle, this one to every previous
one,
basically.
Exactly. I don't see how you can have games that are coming out on both generations, PS4 and PS5, and in the same year release a pro model and justify that. But I'm sure they will be considering trying it.
Yes, I'm sure they will as well. All right, Liz, I think it's time for a beer, and then we'll be back for Topic of the Week. And we are back for Topic of the Week. Topic of the Week this week is our play-along of Observation, Liz.
It is indeed, Mark. Yes, this is our second game from Norco Studios, based right here in, I was going to say sunny Glasgow. It has not been sunny in Glasgow for about 8 months now.
Definitely not. There was a nice 2 weeks in the summer, but that was about it.
Yeah, so this is their second game. It came out in 2019 on PlayStation and then 2020 on Xbox, published by Devolver Digital, which you can kind of get the sense that this game has come about because of the money that a proper indie publisher could put into it. In fact, to say that is not a stretch, because this game effectively was why a lot of the people behind it left I think it was Creative Assembly that were working on Alien Isolation. They left to come and essentially make Observation, but it took them a couple of years to get the money together, in which time they developed Stories Untold, which was our last play-along game. So in a lot of ways, No Code was created to make Observation, and I guess, yeah, we'll get into what we both think of that. We haven't, again, talked about this at all. I've got sort of hesitation about asking you what you thought, but tell me, Mark, what was your overall impression of this game?
Oh, it's not going to be good. I quite genuinely, I really wanted to love this game. Again, as a Glasgow studio, I really like Stories Untold, but my overwhelming feeling playing this game was that it was frustrating and pretty monotonous. It was an interesting story wrapped up in gameplay I did not enjoy interacting with. So I apologise for coming down on that quite hard. I think I enjoyed it more than that sentence probably made it feel, but it was not one of my favourites. I will say
that's
that
fair
much.
enough.
The only time that we did speak about this game is that you said you thought I would like it.
Well, meaning the story more than anything, to be fair.
All right, okay. And I thought I would like it as well, to be clear. I'm not just putting that on you, but yeah. To be honest with you, if I hadn't been playing this for this, I would have bounced off this pretty hard.
Oh, wow,
if I'm
really?
completely honest with myself. Yeah, I don't think I would have, particularly because I was playing The Witcher as well, which I was genuinely struggling to put down to play this game. But no, that was not it. That was not the reason. I just didn't massively enjoy most of the gameplay, I would say.
While I think that that's a fair criticism, and we'll circle back around to that, the part of the reason that I'm querying how much The Witcher influenced this is because, on the total flip side to you, I loved this. I thought this was fantastic from start to finish. I 100%ed this, although there isn't a platinum trophy.
You'd never do that.
Yeah. It was just got to the point where it was only down to collectibles, and I was like, well, I'm just going to get a list and find them all. I really enjoyed this. I would agree that the gameplay, actually in my notes here I can imagine that some players might be frustrated by how ungamey it can be at times. Like, you aren't often doing a hell of a lot.
Like a lot of the game is you're literally an AI using CCTV cameras to look around, and the cameras, oh my god, they are agonizingly slow all the time to do anything, and it's really frustrating. Like it's a grinding halt every single time I've played it. But anyway, please tell me why you liked it.
Even that is an interesting thing, because I was going to say that I suspect one of the reasons that I really did enjoy this, despite those things and despite how ungamey it can feel, is that I played this much earlier than I often play our play-along games, in that I played it kind of during the Christmas break, not so much earlier, but played it at a point where I didn't have anything else on the go, both in terms of what I was playing, and I wasn't going anywhere. I didn't have anything else going on in life, because I basically sat in a 4-day stupor after Christmas and kind of played this. So I was taking it at kind of much more leisurely pace, and as I say, then therefore enjoying all of the collectibles you could find and all the wee lore snippets and piecing together what was going on. And yeah, I totally agree. Like, there are elements of the gameplay that aren't particularly fun. The camera movement can be kind of slow and a bit janky, and sometimes you're just kind of like, can't I just get to the thing that I'm looking for? And I do find that things like even just the setup of it's quite hard to talk about this as a gameplay and a kind of style separately, because one of the things I really loved about it was just exploring a big space station, like a very realistic space station with multiple arms and different types of people in each section and different types of roles and all that kind of thing. But like, actually dealing with that and knowing where to go and knowing what room to be in and when you might need a ball to travel around, I get that stuff could be kind of frustrating.
It was so incredibly frustrating, a lot of that. It really was. It was like, a lot of the times they would say, oh, do this thing, and then that would be it.
Yeah.
And then you would look at like your objectives, and the objective would just say, do the thing I asked you to do. And then you can get them to repeat the thing, but there's no guidance a lot of the time on what to do. And particularly, there was one of the first times you get into like an orb and you can like float about outside the space station that the game takes place in. I think they said, "Oh, go here and do this thing," and you have no concept of where that is when you initially leave, and you can't check your map. So you just had to float about until you stumbled across the thing that you were supposed to be looking for. And also, this is a genuine niggle, but I think that like this does not matter at all. It just annoyed me. But I think that the line of dialogue when you left the spaceship was, "Oh, all right, it's just straight down from here." And I was like, "Motherfucker, we are in space. Down means nothing here."
Yeah, I mean, that's a broader point across the game, that it can be quite disorientating. And I imagine actually, if you play it in a certain way, it could be quite sickening at times, being in that orb and spinning about.
I had a little bit of that, to be honest. Like not like sickening, but a few times where in the orb in particular, where you sort of turned and it was a bit like, do you know what I mean? It was,
you're upside down and you don't know which way you're facing.
Stuff,
I actually found I think it was the first spacewalk that you do. I was lost for ages. I felt like I wasted so much time that I couldn't find what I was supposed to be looking for. And I did think that was one of the things, like putting you on the outside of the ship was a great idea and like a good set piece and all that. But the level of navigation was worse outside than inside, and the inside was not ideal either. But yeah, I mean, I think those are.
It was just guidance on where to go, or just have it very obvious where like all these pods like all had names.
Yeah.
But so they should just have been like, it should have been like a
massively printed on the outside
thing. Like you're supposed to be this AI, you can just be like, "Oh, computer says it's over here."
Yeah,
do you know
that's
what I mean?
true.
There could have been any in-game narratively justified reason to have that fucking glowing whatever color you wanted it to be. Do you know what I mean?
Totally.
But oh god, it was so. A lot of the time, it was just really monotonous and very unfun to play.
See,
and I think that there's a genuinely like interesting story happening there. Sorry, just to move it slightly away from gameplay. There's a genuinely interesting story happening there. Like it's like quite esoteric and whatever, and I'm usually like sort of into that, but like genuinely even that, and I don't know if I just like soured on it by this point, right? So I maybe not the best person to consult about this, but in the end where you're sort of betrayed by Captain whoever the hell he is. But then you think that she's died, although you don't really think that she's died because it's a video game and you know that she's not died. But then she comes back to the ship and then she's suddenly like enlightened and whatever. And I was just like, I'm not really sure I earned that. Do you know what I mean? I'm not really sure I earned that moment where she came back and like everything was different and we were all suddenly like one with the AI and all that. And yeah, I don't know. Like I never even felt as though the story was as strong as Stories Untold, to be honest. Although there was something brilliant in it.
Yeah,
I'm just not sure that we saw it.
I see.
You know what
I mean, again, I guess like this might be the difference in the depth to which we both played it. I thought this was really well executed. A really great piece of like unsettling sci-fi that didn't fall into the usual kind of silly monsters and jump scares tropes. I thought it
didn't beat you over the head with anything,
no.
which I genuinely admire, and I think that is a good thing. I just think that it needed, I don't know, it needed a bit more justification that wasn't in a tape that I missed or a letter
like,
that I didn't read.
That's maybe fair, and not that there was too much of that, but I think the other thing, the clever thing that it does, which maybe pays a wee bit into what you were saying there about I think it was Emma, the kind of lead character, even though you don't actually play as her.
Sure, yeah.
And her kind of transformation by the end. Like the fascinating thing to me about this is that you are playing as an AI, which A, doesn't have any of its own proper, thoughts in the way that we would consider them, and B, doesn't see everything that's going on. And in fact, when the first time that the sort of hexagonal communication system of this alien presence, whatever it is, appears, as Sam, the AI, you sort of black out and you're not really sure when you've woken up and what's happening exactly. So you naturally are led to doubt yourself as the player, because we expect that the AI is the villain because it's a replica of Hal from A Space Odyssey, right?
Sure, exactly. Yeah,
and it's doing everything. I mean, even Sam, the voice of the robot, says at one point, "I brought us to Saturn, but I don't know why." And so you're definitely told to kind of doubt the AI, but the game actually is not about the AI at all in a lot of ways. Like there's something else much different and much deeper going on, and it's the humans that become the problem, which is, yeah, I suppose that happens in a lot of sci-fi stuff, but just that it kept you guessing all the way through. It kept spinning things around, didn't really reveal exactly what was going on until the end. The only bit of the story I didn't enjoy really was the sort of multiple spaceships, multiple timelines. Wasn't quite sure why that was going on.
Yeah, because I don't think any of that was useful or justified or really necessary or well explained.
Yeah,
like even in a nebulous sense, like how that happened wasn't really broached at all.
You're just, I think, supposed to accept that it was like some weird cosmic thing was going on, maybe because of the storm on Saturn or whatever. But yeah, that felt a bit like a shortcut to me, where they wanted to get them off the one ship and onto another so that they could set up a bunch of the things that happened by the end.
They wanted to do a cool space jump, is what they.
Partly that too. Yeah. But it did, it allowed them to.
Wasn't necessary.
It allowed them to have a separate SAM AI that you could learn from and understand what had happened and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, but to me, and in most other ways, the story absolutely nailed it. I really enjoyed finding out everything. And let's just touch really quickly on just the style and the atmosphere and stuff, because this was, I think, unusually for a sci-fi.
That was
game.
Really good, to be fair.
Like,
it was
super realistic art style, down to like the design of the space station you're on. It felt very real, very like the ISS.
It was like Interstellar, right?
Exactly.
That was the vibes, yeah,
totally like that, mixed in with a bit of like Arrival and stuff as well, which I really liked. But the atmosphere in this as well, and you can tell that a lot of the people involved in this game came from Alien Isolation, because it has that kind of slight, I mean, not that the tech was dated, but it was very like of right now, and so it doesn't feel like the slick sci-fi stuff that we're used to. And just that, like, yeah, bobbing around, having to slowly move cameras around to see what's going on, you're kind of always expecting something bad to be happening, and something bad is happening story-wise. I just thought it worked wonders really with like doing tension and unsettling without basically ever pulling a cheap trick that I can think of. It just kind of had its story.
No, it didn't. That I will say it did. It always had an uneasy atmosphere about anything that you were doing, or any sort of interaction you were having, or anywhere that you were supposed to go. You were always like, oh god, am I going to see some fucking creature pop up in front of my face or whatever? And it never ever done that. But it nonetheless felt, as I said, like unsettling and uneasy, similarly to what they were doing in Untold Stories, right? Like one of the things that we spoke about when we spoke about that, and that we said was really good about that, was that like that sense of atmosphere could really lend itself very well to a game like this. And if I enjoyed this game more, it definitely that definitely would have been one of the plus points about it. But I mean, no, they did execute that well, and I do think that the general vibe, as you said, is all very of like right now. I mean, that could be a space station up in space right now for all I know. Do you know what I mean? It could easily be based on something like that. And yeah, it just felt, I don't know, just off a little bit all the time. Like you never really fully understood what was going on, and in the sense that you never knew what to expect next. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, I do suppose that they did nail that pretty well, I would say.
Yeah, no, fair enough. I mean, we've disagreed a bit on this one, but I think both of their games have something to offer, particularly if you like kind of tense narratives, if you like, I struggle to call them horror games really, but like scary games to a certain extent.
Unsettling, like uneasy games. You know what I mean? It's not like true horror games, and I have to say, while clearly I didn't enjoy this one as much as you, or definitely wouldn't be playing it again, definitely probably wouldn't be recommending it to most people if I'm completely honest with myself. But this has not deterred me from looking forward to their Silent Hill game, because they clearly have, while I question the execution and some of the choices made here, they clearly have good ideas. They have bold ideas. They're not afraid to go with bold ideas. And I admire that about the studio no end, despite the fact that, and maybe it's just a matter of taste, that maybe this one just wasn't for me. But yeah, this has not deterred me from looking forward to that Silent Hill game at all. And in actual fact, I still remain very excited about it, and I still think that's one of the most exciting things to come out of that.
Oh, absolutely.
That Silent Hill presentation that we had recently as well. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I think we'll have to call it a day there. I'd like to remind everyone that you can find PlayersToo on all the social media. That is Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, the lot. You can also find our written content over at PlayersToo.com. That's PlayerSToo.com. And if you could take 5 seconds to give us 5 stars over on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts, that really, really, really helps us out. It does a huge amount for the exposure of the show. And while you're over there, if you could leave us a little review as well, again, that just helps us out even more. And thank you so much to anyone that's already done that for us. You're an absolute legend to us. Alright, Lewis, it is time to announce our play-along game for this month, and it is going to be Norco, a game that you chose and I basically know very little about.
That's the way it should be, Mac. Yeah, this was one of the big sort of indie sleeper hits from just last year, actually. Just came out in 2022, I believe, from a developer called Geography of Robots. I'm pretty sure it's basically one guy or just a small team, but it is a kind of Southern Gothic point-and-click adventure game. Think Kentucky Route Zero, which is kind of why I'm quite excited about it. I think it's got
I'm shocked that a game like Kentucky Route Zero and you want to play it.
Yeah. Since I first heard about this, I've been very excited, and it was cropping up in a lot of people's end of the year conversations. I can't wait for it. I was determined to play this ASAP, which is essentially why it is the January game. But I think people are going to really enjoy it, or I hope you do, at least anyway.
Yeah, well, I hope I enjoy this one more than the last one, unfortunately. But I have now sort of looked into Norco a little bit, and it does seem pretty interesting. A lot of people have got a lot of interesting stuff to say about it, so I am quite keen to get stuck into this one. As I said, I have basically no expectations for this one, so this will be clean slate for me.
Yes.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we will see you next week.
Thanks.